A German bomber, said to have flown over New York completely unnoticed. And all of this right in the middle of World War II. Sounds insane. But is there more to this story than just a myth? It's 1942. Europe is in ruins. World War II is raging, and deep within the Nazi regime, an idea is growing. An idea so delusional it borders on brilliance. Germany wants to bomb New York. The belief? If they could strike America on its own soil, with bombs, with fire, they might still turn the tide of the war. At least, that's what they thought, and this is exactly where the Junkers Ju-390 enters the picture. It was born from a bold ambition. A plane with a staggering range, capable of lifting off from Europe, reaching the American East Coast, delivering its deadly payload, and then flying all the way back home. No refueling, no stops, no detection. But how do you build an aircraft that can cross half the Atlantic and return? You don't reinvent the wheel, you build bigger. Instead of designing something entirely new, the team at Junkers took what already worked. The Ju-290, a proven transport and reconnaissance aircraft, and from there it was all about stretching, strengthening, and scaling up. Of course, Junkers wasn't the only company chasing this dream. Messerschmitt had the Me-264 in the works. Focke-Wulf had the TA-400. Heinkel was developing the HE-277, but only the Ju-390 looked truly feasible, because it was based on real, working components. A Frankenstein flyer, pieced together from familiar parts, but with completely new ambitions. Hey, have you subscribed yet? One simple click, totally free, but it means the world to us. Thanks. Back to the Ju-390. This wasn't your average aircraft. This was a flying colossus, longer than many modern regional jets. A wingspan over 50 meters. That's more than 2 articulated buses end to end, its wings, big enough to cover 2 full tennis courts, and all of it moved through the sky. 6 massive BMW 801E radial engines, each producing 1,700 horsepower, fired in unison. Over 10,000 horsepower combined. These were tried and tested engines, the same ones used in the legendary Focke-Wulf 190 fighter. But 6 running at once? That meant heat, vibration, and fuel consumption on a whole new level. Its range, theoretically close to 10,000 kilometers, more than enough to fly from France to New York City. And back again. No aerial refueling, no layovers, and believe it or not, no GPS. Of course, theory and real-world results rarely match. Realistically, it could reach about 8,000 kilometers depending on load and weather. Still, a staggering feat. An intercontinental bomber from Germany, capable of hauling over 10 tons of bombs or cargo, depending on the variant. Despite its sheer size, the Ju-390 flew stable. Slow to respond, yes, but steady and predictable. A triumph of engineering. Massive, yet manageable. Only takeoff posed a real danger. The Ju-390 needed ridiculously long runways. Fully loaded, it was a flying block of lead. And if a single engine failed during a climb-out, the resulting chaos could turn deadly in seconds. Defensive systems? Packed. 2 20mm MG 151/20 cannons and an overhead turret, 1 more at the tail, and 4 13mm machine guns. 2 on each side of the fuselage. 2 more beneath the nose. And plans were drawn up for a monster upgrade. Quad-barreled MG 131 turrets at the front and rear, and offensively. Things were just as ambitious. Underwing hard points were designed to carry Fritz X glide bombs or Henschel HS-293 guided missiles, high-precision weapons capable of sinking any battleship. All of it crammed into a mostly aluminum airframe built in factories that once churned out civilian aircraft. But the Ju-390 wasn't a one-off. It was meant to start a family. A whole series of aircraft was planned, each with its own purpose, its own mission. Some saw the light of day, others disappeared into the fog of war. Let's begin with the V1, the first prototype. This aircraft was real, tangible, flown. Built in Dessau, based on the fuselage of a Ju-90, it took to the skies for the first time on October 20th, 1943. Just imagine the sight. 6 roaring radial engines, a fuselage as long as a house, wings that seemed almost alien. The V1 was thoroughly tested. In Prague, it flew regularly until March 1944. It was even used to test aerial refueling, a concept decades ahead of its time. and it was showcased to Hitler himself, a high-profile project built to impress. Its fate was sealed in April 1945. As Allied troops advanced, it was destroyed in Dessau. No one was supposed to get their hands on it. Then there's the V-2, the mysterious sibling. Did it really exist? Experts still argue. Some claim it was completed in June 1944 and flown that September. Others insist it was airborne as early as 1943. And then there's Friedrich Georg, a German author who claimed that test pilot Jo Eisermann flew the V-2 for 50 minutes over Rechlin on February 9, 1945. He even cites a logbook entry. But the twist? The man who flew the V, Hans Panchers, disputed all of it. After the war, he stated clearly, there was only one Ju-390, period. So what's the truth? Maybe the V-2 did exist, maybe it didn't. Maybe it was almost ready, but never flew. What is known, it was intended for maritime reconnaissance, equipped with radar, long-range capabilities, and heavy defensive firepower. Reportedly, 5 20mm cannons, depending on the source. And there were more plans. Big ones, entire variants in the pipeline. The Ju-390A-1 was designed as a heavy transport aircraft. Cargo, troops, maybe even vehicles, carried across vast distances. 26 were ordered, none were built. The Ju-390B was tailored for the ocean. A long-range patrol plane for the Atlantic, hunting submarines, shadowing convoys, feeding strategic data to the Navy, a flying eye for the Kriegsmarine. And the most dangerous of them all? The Ju-390C, a true long-range bomber. No longer a passive scout, but a global threat. The very model that might have reached New York. And here's where the story gets even stranger, or maybe more surreal. Japan showed interest, that's right. The Imperial Army wanted to license the Ju-390. A contract was reportedly signed in 1944. Blueprints were supposed to be delivered to a General Otani by February 1945. Did it happen? No one knows. The war and the surrender got in the way. What's certain is that the Ju-390 did fly. It was built, it was tested, it was shown off. But was it ever used in combat? Did it ever carry out a mission, one that could have changed the course of history? The first prototype, the Ju-390V1, flew intensively, but only for testing. It made experimental flights in Dessau and Prague. It tested mid-air refueling. It was measured, observed, refined. A technical marvel, but never an operational weapon. And that's the key distinction. The Ju-390 flew, but it never fought. Still, there's one story that refuses to die. The story of a flight to New York City. Allegedly, in January 1944, a Ju-390 took off from Mont-de-Marsan, a Luftwaffe airbase in France. Its mission, the American East Coast. It supposedly crossed the Atlantic, came within 12 miles of New York, snapped aerial photos, and returned safely to Europe. A near strike on the heart of the USA, right in the middle of the war. The claim first surfaced in 1955, made by British aviation journalist William Green. He said it was based on British intelligence reports, specifically the testimony of German PAS, but that's where the problems start. There are no photos, no reconnaissance images, no radar logs, not a single hard piece of evidence confirming the flight ever happened. Worse, pilot Hans Pancher's flight log shows that the V-1 wasn't even in France at the time. It was in Prague, far from the Atlantic. And even if it had been in France, the aircraft was still undergoing tests. It's extremely unlikely that it would have been sent across the ocean under combat conditions. No escort, in winter, in wartime. Could it have been the V-2? Doubtful. Its very existence is unproven. And even if it had been built, it likely wasn't operational in January 1944. So why does the story exist? One theory, psychological warfare. What better way to rattle American nerves than to suggest their homeland was no longer safe? That German bombers could appear over their cities, anytime, unseen? That would have forced the US to shift focus, pulling resources away from Europe, reinforcing home defenses, building radar stations, repositioning interceptors, calming public fears. If that was the goal, then the myth of the Ju-390 may have been more effective than any actual bomb, and so the story floats in the space between legend and propaganda. Maybe it was made up, maybe it was misunderstood. One thing's for sure, it still works. But reality was more sobering. By the summer of 1944, the entire Amerika Bomber project was shut down. The war had changed. Germany had lost air superiority, fuel was scarce. Aircraft production was redirected to defense, to fighters, not far-fetched dreams of intercontinental power. So what do you think? Did the Ju-390 really make it to New York? Or was it all just a brilliantly crafted bluff? Tell us in the comments. We read them all, and if you like this video, leave a like and subscribe for more stories like this. Until next time, stay curious, stay sharp, and keep your imagination in the sky.